Hello, and you're very welcome to a podcast which is all about the Irish League. My name is Peter Cinnamon, and with the leaders sneaking away off for a week, Larne took their opportunity to shorten Linfield's lead at the top once again by dispatching Coleraine on Friday night. Cliftonville kept their own chase up thanks to a Sunday stroll through Taylor's Avenue, while Dungannon pop off bottom thanks to their drubbing of Newry City, who now take their place at the basement. Plenty to natter through on this week's edition of Kicking Match. The Christmas lights are on in town. Everywhere that's trying to sell you anything is trying to entice you in with some sort of sale this week. It's that time of year. And while I can't really offer you anything for Black Friday, what I can do is give you a 2-for-1 on Irish League Insight. Joining me this week, while stocks last, is football reporter with the newsletter. Hello and welcome back, Johnny McNabb.
Peter, how's the form? How are you keeping?
I'm doing all right. How are you? Have you properly dried out after your adventures to Larne on Friday evening? Or do you think that you'll need plenty of big, toasty winter fires to sit in front of until you're completely thawed and you're dry as a bone?
Yeah, well, the wife just lit a fire there in the house this evening, so I can just about feel it in here. So, no, I was at Dungannon as well on Saturday, so I got a canoe from Larne to Dungannon. Didn't even come home. So, listen, just seems like it always rains in Northern Ireland, so yeah, I just have to take it when it comes, obviously.
We've set the scene. I hope there's lots of other people sitting out there, the fire lit, all cozy, waiting to have a whole big chat on the weekend of Irish League action that was. But if we're going to start, let's go to that game which you were at on Friday night. Larne had the opportunity to make that gap even smaller between them and the Blues, who were absent from our schedule this weekend. They had a Coleraine side who have been up and down constantly. You just don't know what you're going to get. And in the end, they were able to hold off all these attacking threats, get 2 goals themselves, some familiar figures getting them, and it's another win for Tiernan Lynch and his Larne side. It wasn't all easy going, but from a Larne point of view, you come off the back of that Linfield game, going in the winter and getting the points. The last thing you'd want when you have that opportunity to close the gap is to slip on a banana skin of a home game against a top 6 side. They get the points, and now they are a game behind, but 2 points. That is such a swing compared to what we were maybe 2 weeks ago, a week ago.
Yeah, like if you look at it, the first 20 minutes of the game against Linfield, would have been 11 points behind them, obviously with Joel Cooper's goal, and now they're only 2. So yeah, look, they it's probably hard when you go and win a game of that magnitude, and then play a team maybe further on down the league they try and get up to the same levels. And yeah, look, there wasn't much in the game. To be honest, I thought Larne deserved it, but it wasn't 2-0 hammering, if you know what I mean. There wasn't that many clear cut chances. But obviously, look, Larne, they got the goals, they got the clean sheet, as you say, and ran out winners. So for Corey's point of view, yeah, huffed and puffed, but didn't really overly threaten. Obviously, with Matthew Shevlin and Andy Scott both going off, that's 2 big losses. And look, taking the Korean glasses off and everyone else, Kieran Bolger, he should have been sent off after a minute. I've seen the tackle back. It's a bad one. Referees make mistakes as other people in lives make mistakes, or maybe they just didn't see it, and that's just football. That's just life, unfortunately.
I was wondering when that incident was going to get brought up here, and you're probably right. It is a key talking point to have it right at the start. It's pretty much within the first minute, second minute, and it hasn't got too much talk about it so far. I know Ron Kearney was furious about it, and pretty much is a tackle where it's a 50-50, balls in the air, both players are going for it, but Bolger, his boot is just below the knee. It is high and it connects, and it connects with plenty of vigour, and it was quite close actually to the linesman as well, which surprised me. They aren't sitting there telling the referee of the contact, and it ends up being, was it even just a yellow at the time, but it ended Matthew Shevlin's game, and how long that could have him on the sidelines, we'll just have to see. It's one of those things which we often will say, if that was maybe in the 15th, 20th, 70th minute, I think it's a red card, but I think it maybe took everybody off guard by how early it was in the game.
Yeah, I think it was like 56 seconds or something clock, and that was literally in the first minute. And And to be fair to Matthew, he's tried to run it off, but he's literally he can't, and he's had to be subbed. And then Andy's had to come off with an injury and be subbed, and then Graham Kelly has had to come off in the second half as a precaution. So we obviously only allowed 3 stoppages, and our 3 were for injuries. But listen, look, it's no, I'm not using that as an excuse for the defeat or anything like that there, but it is a talking point. And look, I think obviously if you're playing against 10 men for 89 minutes, it obviously makes your life far easier. And yeah, Matthew left Inver Park and crutches. I messaged him yesterday. Still pretty sore. The swelling isn't as bad as he thought it was going to be, which is maybe a positive. But again, look, it was just below the knee, and his knee scraped and everything else. So look, it's probably a waiting game to see. And bit of a frustrating one too, because obviously Matthew was just back really from a 3-match ban as well. And he gets red carded, and this is 3 matches for that. And yeah, Kane Bolger, and Kane Bolger's not a malicious player at all. I've never ever seen him like that. I'm not. Listen, he's just misjudged the flight of the ball, and unfortunately, he's caught Matthew, and that's just football, and that's just sport, I suppose. But yeah, it's just disappointing.
For those who haven't seen it, it's not even that it was a scuff, and that's very much what it was. It came across just below the knee. It's the fact that Shevlin's leg was planted at the time, so his right leg's planted, and then in comes the boot, which pushes the knee back on itself, and then up he pops again. And he's been such a key player. He hasn't shown up in the same way as he did last season, but for Coleraine, this just must be such a frustrating year, because you can see all the attacking talent. You can see that the manager's trying to tinker and find a way to make this all work. And when it works, it's so exciting, but it's often just the small little details, the simple things, and oftentimes the boring things which aren't going right, which is holding this team back.
All teams go through injuries and suspensions. I think the main one for Coleraine, and I think a lot of fans would say this, it's probably more at the back. We sort of really struggled, with Stevie O'Donnell's been out for a while, Graham Kelly's been running out for at stages, Kieran Farn is this season. Adam Mullen and Rodney Brown probably won't kick a ball before Christmas, haven't kicked a ball all season. And then Dean Jarvis is obviously been suspended, and I think he had a knock as well for a while. So look, it's one of them things that all teams go through them, and then when you go to the other side of the pitch, Matthew's our main goal threat, him and Connor. And Connor obviously he missed the game against Glentoran through suspension too. So yeah, look, I genuinely don't think we've probably been able to field the same start 11 twice this season, maybe once, twice. And all teams go through that, but it just seems to be at the minute the squad is very, very stretched. Lee Lynch obviously was injured as well, so all teams go through it. It's no excuse. You've a squad for a reason, and I was at the Newry game yesterday on Saturday, for example, and I think their whole starting midfield three's all injured or suspended as well. So look, all teams have to manage that.
Coleraine have lost as many games as they have won. I remember last season talking about how the season before that, Colerane's big Achilles heel was getting results against the top 6. That isn't directly the case this time around. Clear they could win more games against them, but we will remember plenty of times. We see the Dungannon result and elsewhere where it hasn't been going sparkling against the bottom 6 either. For Coleraine, 24 points. They're 14 points off Larne in second. I'm not saying they were going to be title challengers or anything like that, but there's a chance they could be out of the running for a European slot pretty quickly unless things start to turn around. Is this already becoming a bit of a lame duck season for Coleraine, especially with the money that may come in come the end of this season, realistically?
Yes and no, but I think as well, and I was thinking that this is going to come up, I think the players are probably playing for the futures. Let's be perfectly honest. We at the end of the day, if the investment happens, the club's going to go full time, and whether or not players are going to come in, the players that can't play full time. It's just there's so many different questions that need answered. So I would say no, because as well as that, we're still in the quarter-final League Cup. I think we've been to the last 40 finals of that competition, and then obviously the Irish Cup that rolls around as well. And you look at Crusaders last couple of years, they haven't really been in a title race, but they've really kept a good Irish Cup run going. They've won the last 2. And that's as good as anything, because obviously you get straight into Europe. So I would say no, but in terms of like a title challenge, oh yes, of course. But I think if we'd have beat Cliftonville the other week, we would only won 2 points behind them. So there's just so many, and they're in third obviously. So obviously simple Simon here, but obviously the higher you are in the league, the better chances in Europe and the playoff and being at home and stuff like that. So I'd say no, but in terms of being up there challenging Linfield and Larne, yeah, it's definitely probably without reach.
Returning to Larne, it's 5 wins in a row after a shaky start to the season. They're starting to find form, and it's another week where I'm talking about Joe Thompson getting a key goal. It's another header. It's another great header, finding space in the box to rise high and nick it in. And I'm sure for Larne, they were delighted to see Leroy Miller get a goal. It's not a part of his game they rely on, but when you look at his stature and his influence on the game, they're thinking, probably believe he would do more of that, being more of a threat from set pieces. But 2-0 it all wraps up, and for Larne, they'll just try and keep this run going. They'll want all the games right now. It isn't always pretty, but it's incredibly effective, and they've been able to rework the team when they haven't got the big boys in the side. And you even saw that miss from the bonus throughout the game, where it looked like something you'd see from on the regular, breaking free, just sitting on the line, where the pass goes through, he's onside. And even early in the season, last season, he has the confidence to even take it round the keeper, take a shot from far out, but just when he has that extra second to think, he doesn't get it even on target. So they've got players to come back, but it's not like they're going to come in and hit the ground running. So every team, even as you're saying with Korean, are going to have their injuries. But for Larne, what's been such a key to their recent success is the players that have come in, and obviously Joe Thompson is the keystone here, is the key example, but Paul O'Neill and others, they've become so important to them, and it puts them on such a nice pedestal now, where that extra game in hand would have been against Crusaders for Linfield, and that will still come, but it just puts that extra bit of pressure on the Blues that wasn't there. I'm sure they'll be happy to deal with it, but this has just been such a golden time for the Infrareds.
It has indeed, Peter. When they go back to Joe Thompson, I think he's nearly sort of like scoring the same type of goals that Philip Lurry scored last season, just the right place at the right time, head, volleys, whatever it is. And yeah, Leroy Miller, I tweeted that he was unmarked. I sort of gave him a bit of disservice because he ran in front of his marker and all of that in. So sorry to Leroy if he's listening. And Lee Bonus as well, yeah, whenever the flick one was on there and he was on side, expecting him to hit the back of the net, but I think it's maybe a case of he's sort of been warming the bench sort of recently, so maybe he's just not as match sharpness, if that makes sense. But whenever you're bringing on Lee Bonus and Andy Ryan from the bench, it's sort of a bit like cheating at football, isn't it? And yeah, look, it's a golden time for them. Of course, it is. They've won 5 in a row. It's been a perfect November for them, and obviously coming into a busy Christmas as well. And yeah, look, so the same pressure that they had going into Friday night in terms of cutting the gap, Linfield will have that obviously whenever they come round, and for God knows how many points it could be clear, or they could be behind, or it could be a level of points, but they'll have that same pressure whenever they have to play that game away to Crusaders. So I think the league needed Larne to sort of kick on and close the gap, because I think it's Linfield to beat Larne a couple of weeks ago. The league was as good as over. So
I agree.
It's going to be a good shootout between the two. Larne have had Linfield's number in a lot of games, both the cup and in the league recently. So, and again, look, both of them will go back in January. I think David Haley's going on record kind of saying that the squad's stretched. I'm sure if good play, like at Larne signed Andy Ryan in January last year, and look at many important goals he scored for them. So I'm sure both teams will look at the January sales.
This is a question around boring football scheduling semantics, but not that it's our decision to make. But if you were a Linfield fan, do you think perhaps playing the Crusaders game on Saturday would have been the right move? I know if they would have lost that, you'd been sitting, well, why are we playing this game when we have the likes of McKee and others out due to international call-ups? But they were looking at a Crusaders side who aren't in great form, who just scrape by against Loughgall and don't have at least a fully fit Ben Kennedy, Heatley or Leckie. And add that all together, yes, you wouldn't be without some players, but they've now given Larne that jump on them. It would all be based on how the weekend went, but do you think they should have just grim bared it and played it because they've done that before.
They have, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. Obviously, when they play the Cruise and maybe next month or whatever, and they win the game, and they'll be thinking it was great. Or if they don't, they'll be thinking, "Check what have we done?" So yeah, look, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I suppose maybe with Linfield's squad being a stretch, obviously a couple of guys being released and everyone, maybe losing a few more bodies in terms of international call-ups. David Haley just didn't want to take that chance, and I think he's won at 5 leagues in 7 years. So who am I to sort of cast doubt in his judgment? So
It would have been the first thing that we would have been talking about on this podcast if it was a Crusaders win, or in fact, if this wasn't a Linfield win at all, we would have went, what are they playing this without Chris McKee and others? So it's just, I've seen some people talk about it, and I kind of get it, where sometimes if you just play it, there was other factors in there, but them skipping out, being the Blues, also gave Cliftonville the chance to make that gap smaller, and they did just that. It's down to 5 points for them in third place. It's thanks to a 3-0 win against Carrick Rangers on Sunday afternoon, and it's once again Hale the hero, and he's running around with the captain's armband at the minute. He's delivering assists, he's scoring goals, and he was the man that opening the score there at Taylor's Avenue. Perhaps once again wasn't a vintage performance from Cliftonville, but they took their goals very well.
Yeah, look, Rory Hale, arguably probably one of the best players in the league. All energetic. Don't think there's a blade of grass or 4G plastic that he doesn't cover when he plays. So yeah, he probably would love to add more goals to the game. But yeah, in terms of the heartbeat of the team, and he seems to drive them forward and gets them up the pitch and wins fouls here and there and brings others into play. And look, Carrick's a tough place to go. They beat Korean there earlier in the year. They beat Glentoran there as well. They knocked Cliftonville out the County Antrim Shield there too this year. So everyone knows it's a difficult place to go. And they go up one there 3-0, keep a clean sheet, and everyone else after Carrick's win against Glentoran, I think it was last weekend as well. So yeah, they'll be delighted with that. And if you offered Jimmy Johnson even a 1-0 one, he'd have taken it. Never mind scoring three and being a reasonable easy afternoon for them.
They were kind of similar goals. They all came from breakaways, but Cliftonville have the players that will totally capitalise on that. You think of all the players from Malin to the Heels. These are players who are happy to have the ball at their feet and plenty of grass in front of them. And they went from one end of the pitch to the other. The first goal being key example of that. The other ones, I remember the second heel goal this time from Ronan. I mean, the ball just goes straight up and he's able to beat a defender to his side and pick it out. But for Carrick Rangers, as much as they look like they're well beaten 3-0, they have plenty of chances. None of them absolutely clean or clear cut, but if you're watching back the highlights, you'll see plenty of times where the Cliftonville defenders are scrambling. There's panic in the box. So the one thing that this Carrick Rangers side does have is plenty of attacking talent themselves and have lots of goals in them. And if the ball isn't falling for you or the breaks aren't coming your way, there's no way that you're going to beat a side like the Reds. So they've been on a better run, Carrick Rangers, but on another day you'll think that they turn the ball in once or twice in the box and it's a completely different result here.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not next weekend when they play us. So, but yeah, look, no, Carrick, you've mentioned it really, really well there. The recruitment, especially, I've been really impressed with. Especially since Stuart's come in, obviously, the likes of Curtis and Metis and Andy Mitchell, Danny Purtis, guys like that, so they will always be a threat and score goals. And no disrespect to Carrick, when did you ever see in their lifetime that they'll have like Albert Watson, Cameron Stewart, Stephen Gordon, Cushley, and Joe Crow all on the bench? So they've recruited really, really well, and it's always a tough place to go. And their season isn't going to be defined in today's result. Yes, I'm sure they have aspirations of finishing the top six and in the years to come, obviously now with the investment, but their bread and butter is playing the bottom six teams and trying to take as much points off the teams above them as they can. So yes, look, Stuart King, he heads and kicks every single ball on the touchline. You can hear him shouting from Carrickfergus in my house about 60 miles away when they're playing on a Saturday or Sunday, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, their bread and butter is probably those teams in and around them and try and pick up as many points as they can. And look, as you said, another day they probably would have scored a few goals. And
If there was a big box of cliches associated with this podcast, I feel like this is one of them because Carrick somewhat remind me of a bottom six version of Korean. They have all these goals, and when you see their key players running away, celebrating a brace or getting a big winner against the top six side, you think they have a lot of they've got a lot of gusto here and a lot of talent to really kick on off the back of this result. And then, not saying this game against Cliftonville was an example of that, but then you see them play against the Glenavon or others there and get caught out, or they look a bit hapless, and you think they do not have the foundation to push on here. And I know they're a team that I was talking about last week, very much trying to play to their key player strengths, and if that works out, you're flying. If it doesn't, then you're snookered. But for Carrick, their key thing is going to be exactly the same as what Korean's key thing is going to be, and it's trying to tighten up at the back, but also get a bit more consistency. The thing I would say is when you try and tighten at the back and try and change the way you play going forward, you could almost lose what makes you great going forward trying to fix it. You may have to take a step back in order to try and take two steps forward.
yeah, bit of kamikaze football. They come back to like Korean or them. Like I've said this now for the last 3 or 4 weeks. We're a mad team. We went to Crusaders 1-2-0, easy enough, and then went to Ballymena. And no disrespect to Ballymena, they were not in great form and just about won. And the penalty shootout just finished there last week. It was just a mad team. I suppose cards like that too, where they've went to drawn at Windsor Park, they've beaten Korean at home, beaten Glentoran at home. Yet they could go to for example, they could go to Lochgall near in and really struggle. So as you say, it's consistency. But I say this to everybody: there is no easy teams in this league, and I think this year I've noticed bottom six teams have taken far more points off the top six teams compared to obviously last year. So it just goes to show you, and you look at the players that I mentioned there with Carrick's in the last 5 minutes. A few of them guys would definitely get games for teams in the top six. So it's better for the league obviously as well, and keeps it more competitive. And yeah, look, so like if Carrick had won that game today or drawn it, you wouldn't have been shocked. I'm not shocked that Cliftonville went there and won too. So it's just so competitive, and you just don't really know what you're going to get. Even look at Glenavon, we're probably going to chat about them very very soon. Whenever Steve McDonald came in and I think he lost his first 2 or 3 games, you never would have turned around and thought they were going 4 in a row. You just don't know. In any given day, anything can happen.
You're correct. We are going to the other hot team in the league, Glenavon. They win out against their tricky County Armagh rivals in Lochgall, and they are now able to make it 4 wins in a row for Stephen McDonnell. And this is just such an incredible turnaround. And they're a team who weren't able to get goals, weren't able to get results against anybody. And they are crawling their way not only out of any sort of relegation worries or being in that mire, but they're starting to crawl their way back up where they like to be, their safe space in 7th place. They're not there yet, but defeating fellow top of the bottom 6 rivals Lochgall will go a long way to get you there. And I thought they got the goal early, which helped them a lot, but they pretty much controlled this game from start to finish. They were tactically far better. They knew how Lochgall were going to play, and they just snuffed it out completely. It wasn't the most free-flowing attacking performance from them. I don't know if they're a team that are ever going to play that way with their current makeup of their squad, but they had a lot of things they had to worry about with Lochgall. How were they going to deal with their wide men? How were they going to deal with their big bustling strikers? And how were they going to find a way to unlock this very physical, stern defence? One way to do that is capitalising off a chance that's pretty much handed to them from a set piece, and from there they controlled the game. So not only did I think it was a great performance from the players individually, I could see this was a savvy managerial performance as well from Steve McDonnell.
Yeah, and I was at Glenavon's game against Ballina, the time of the heavy fog a couple of weeks ago. You could just about make out the players. So I was able to just about see what was happening, and yeah, they were very good that day, and they were very balanced, I thought, as well. Ballymena had no real opportunities, whereas Glenavon maybe had 4 or 5, and on 4 or 5 really good ones. So on a different day, if Glenavon had won that game 3-4-0, nobody, you couldn't have begrudged them that. So it didn't really shock me that they won yesterday. And I think reading between the lines, I think Glenavon's run of fixtures have been kinder to them in terms of the games. But at the end of the day, you have to win them. Credit to Stephen McDonald. What a turnaround it's been. Never the easiest job coming in replacing a long-term manager. And obviously, I think the first 2 or 3 games didn't go to plan. But he's obviously turned the tide around. And I think they played like they played a 3-5, 3-4-3 sort of formation against Ballina. And their wide men were really, really good. Peter Campbell and Connor Husky that day. All they're lacking is a striker that can just put the ball in the back of the net. The amount of chances they missed against Ballina. I know the recruitment drives already started. They signed James Duna from Longford. So obviously, look, Steve McDonald's going to have contracts down in the League of Ireland, and I'm sure he'll be wheeling and dealing like Del Boy over the next couple of months. And I think they only have to look up. I think 5 points gets them into the top 6, and you wouldn't have thought that even 3. So yeah, look, credit to them.
Yeah, I've got to give a bit of credit to some of these key players that have been such a focal point to this run. You mentioned McCluskey there. He has been given this ability to find space out wide, and he's had one of his better seasons, pinging the ball in from out wide. You have Robbie Garrett, who wasn't really a pick of the choice when it came to Gary Hamilton's team. He's now been given a role back in the starting 11, and he's back to his best, snapping at the heels of the opposition. And as well as that, he was always going to be a key player for them. But Niall Quinn, he just looks so assured on the ball. He finds his way higher and higher up the pitch. And when he's up there, it gives other players the ability to find space themselves, move around in front. And they took the 2 goals well. I thought Isaac Bird just coming into the box, thanks to Tucker just not dealing with the corner at all. Jack Malone, who's another player who wasn't starting week in and week out for Glenavon, he has composure to swing his boot rounded and score a goal in the bottom corner from the edge of the box. And like I said earlier, it was just the fact that when Loughgall come to take apart some of these other teams, as I've said here before, it's coming out wide and coming from deep. And in many ways, Glenavon just stopped that altogether. They hung back, and then as soon as they crossed the halfway line, they just jumped on them. And then every time they'd have to then make a quick pass to a front man and that be sniffed out. It's like they just set these traps. And Loughgall, I think, had a bit of an eye-opening game there on Saturday. This was always going to come. They weren't always going to just completely take away all the other bottom 6 sides. But Loughgall, not that they've been found out, but I think McDonald did a number on them. And I think there's a bit of a blueprint here. And I wonder if other teams will take that. And it's now up to Loughgall, who have found this great way of playing to get them within a sniff of the top 6. Will they now be able to look at their squad and go, okay, when we go against these other teams, can they change it up? They've shown that they can change up the personnel to try and freshen things up and make it work. But now, when they've had such a brilliant season so far, is this now where Dean Smith really, really earns his money and he's able to reinvent this team halfway through the season? That probably sounds like it's all panic stations after that game. It's more of a case of there has been a chink in the armour, and that's probably the best time to start trying to patch it up rather than waiting to it all fall apart.
And yeah, anytime I've watched them, I've been really, really impressed by them and their energy levels and how they never give in, and they're always thereabouts. So yeah, look, I think they've lost, is it 3 of the last 4, maybe 4 of the last 6 as well. So yeah, obviously they'll be wanting to turn that tide, and not, they would probably rather consolidate and look up rather than look down. I think that's obvious. So yeah, obviously with Glenavon winning a few games now, and obviously Dungannon picking up a big one as well. So I've looked at Loughgall and how they've done, and I still think they're a better team than Uri and Ballymena. And I think the biggest thing that I could say about Loughgall is they know how to play, and they've played the same sort of formation for a lot of years, where that's been the Premiership. And I know I know what you're saying in terms of maybe teams have sussed them out, but how they've played so far has done them no harm as well. And I think they've a couple of competitions coming up now in the Mid Ulster and League Cup, so whether or not Dean rests a few and gives others a chance, and maybe they might step up to the plate as well. And I'm sure January as well will be a big month, and And they have a big game now on Saturday at home to Dungannon, and that will really test them. I think that's their biggest match this season, to be honest. I do mean that. I think Dungannon, obviously a big win against Newry, and obviously Loughgall are coming in three of the last four, not winning. And obviously as well, a bit of a rivalry there too. It's only 8 or 9 miles between the two teams, so I think you'll learn a lot from Loughgall next weekend. To be honest with you, I think if they get beat without laying a glove on them, I think then maybe
I
that's
love this. Let's hype up these clashes between the bottom six sides. You're so right there. Who would have thought we'd be looking at a game between them and Glenavon and thinking, oh, Loughgall missed a chance to enter the top six with that loss there. If they had got a win, they would have overtaken Coleraine. But I'm sure they'll be delighted to where they are. But you've highlighted a key point. Dungannon go into that game next week after such a torrid couple of results off the back of their biggest win of the season, probably their best complete performance of the season. We've seen them have these late shows, we've seen them have these spurts of goals and attacking play, but this was their most complete performance at home when they needed to come up big against Newry City. They went out 4-1, and I felt this game was a story of Dungannon doing something that they haven't done very well, and that is execute on their chances. Saying that, Matthew Lusty could, if he had taken all the chances he had, and they were great chances, he might be top of the goal scoring charts right now. So they take some chances, they miss some chances, ultimately they get a massive win, 4-1. I'm sure Rodney McAree just had a massive sigh of relief when that final whistle rang out. This was the performance he's been crying out for. This was the result they've been crying out for, and it takes them off the bottom up to 10th.
I was at that one, as I mentioned earlier, for work, and me and my colleague were travelling down, and I said to him I fancy a lot of goals in that game, and I don't know what the highlights have shown. I haven't watched them yet, but it could have honestly ended about 13-7. The amount of chances it was crazy. But yeah, look, I think the first half an hour killed the game. Yuri just anything the ball seemed to come into the box, and Matthew lost his first goal was a lovely strike in the bottom corner, and obviously Thomas Galvin, two totally different types of goals. The first one, typical striker, better, and the second one, the turn and the finish is really, really underrated. Just the turn and just how he kept it on target as well. So, and yeah, look, obviously Newry got one back with an own goal, and they did threaten at the start of the second half. And if that game goes 3-2, you just don't know how things would end up. But the fines come on and settle the game, and they missed a couple of ones thereafter. And you look at Dungannon's squad, and you just don't know how the bottom of the league. Kieran Dillon is he's just orchestrates everyone in the middle of the park. Thomas Maguire is so quick. Ethan McGee wasn't even playing; he was with the 21s. Chris Hegarty, Keelan Moran, two good keepers, and Connor Mitchell and Declan Dunn, Big Rama, Leo Albert. They've just got, you're naming these guys off the tip of your tongue, and just how they're in that position, I just don't know. And probably similar to Glenavon as well. I know it's weird saying this after they just scored 4 goals, but if they just have somebody that just sticks the ball, I know every manager would say this, but they just have somebody who regularly stuck the ball in the back of the net, they probably wouldn't find themselves in that position.
I'm so glad you mentioned Keelan Dillon. He is my little football hipster pick of that game. He's the man that delivers that ball in from the set piece for, was it the second or third goal where the free kick goes off the crossbar, and then he's also the man swinging the ball in from out wide for another. He's been a player who had played in that poor Warren Point team that then gets relegated. He sticks with them for a season. He was this youth product in the centre of midfield. He comes back into the league with Dungannon, and he is everything you want in a midfielder in that part of the table. He is tenacious in the tackle. He's not scared to look up and find a player. He's great on deliveries. He is a great all-rounder. And if Dungannon are to start to build on this result, he is going to be such a keystone to it all. For Newry, you mentioned that there was a couple of injuries. A positive, I think, for them, he didn't get his chance to show exactly what he's all about, is that when you see John McGovern returning to the side, he only got maybe 20-30 minutes in, but that must be great for Gary Boyle and his side to think that you've got a player that talented finally coming back into your squad.
100%. He's a goal threat as well, and if you get him and Adam Sally firing all cylinders, and Donald Scullion hasn't kicked the ball for him all season either, and that's two big losses, and John. I think for Gary, I think the main frustration would be the Dungannon did they work really hard for the goals. Yes, the first one's a great finish. The second and third goals are balls into the box. The fourth one, you don't need too much space at the edge of the box. So I think out the silly goals. And again, look, they have a big. I think and they have a big one obviously on Friday against Glenavon. But I think the big thing for Newry is that yes, they're now bottom of the league, but it's not a position they haven't been in before, so they won't panic. I don't think they have experience of being there and getting themselves out of it. So you just need to be better and not conceding really, really poor goals, because 3-0 down after 35 minutes, you're not going to come back in any game really. Yeah, John McGovern came on, had a few nice touches, but you can just tell that he's been out for a while.
Yeah, he's off the pace ever so slightly, and it felt as though he was trying to stick the whole team on his back and wiggle his way through this entire Dungannon back line. But ultimately, when you're, whatever it was, 2-3 goals down, it was going to take a whole team performance or something miraculous to get them out of there. They're bottom at the minute, which is not going to feel good, but are they even points with Ballymena at the minute? So that at least that's something of benefit for them. I guess you never want to be bottom of the table, and to a certain extent that game, you got to give a bit of context to it, that comes away from home after losing. I know they got that draw in the cup, but in the league, what is it, maybe 6 losses in a row? What was there's at least 5. The last time the one out was against Ballymena. So for them, they've never really got going forward. They haven't really ever had any sort of stern meanness at the back. It's that age-old problem, keeping the goals out and not being able to score them. If you actually combine Ballymena and Newry's goals scored, you're only sitting there on 27, and Newry are the leakiest defence in the league. So they are having some players who they'd want to be starting out at the minute, but they're going to have to get out of this rut sooner or later, or you could see that place at the bottom become a gap and grow. And it's just in that part of the table, it's not the easiest place to maneuver from.
No, it isn't. And yeah, like you mentioned, the midfield especially, they're going to have to get back in there, like Thomas Hart and Liam Bagnall and Grafters. And I think the reform is going to be really, really important. I know that's another football cliche, but it really, really is. They're going to have to make Newry a really, really difficult place to go and get a result. And, whether or not Friday night comes against Glenavon, they just try and get a point just to add so that they end the tide of losing in the league and get a point on the board and a wee bit of confidence going there. So, no, yeah, look, I don't think they'll panic. It's not as if they're massively caught adrift. They're not. They're bottom of goal difference. So, a couple of wins, you're probably up to near 9th now in the league. That's just how tight it is. So, if you look at recent games, I think Larne had to come from behind to beat them late on. I think they were very, very good against Linfield, and I think they were actually quite good against Cliftonville the other weekend as well. So probably just not far away, but it's probably just an added bit of ruthlessness in both boxes.
A team who showed their teeth and was ruthless on Saturday, Glentoran. The floodgates opened at the back for Ballymena. I felt as though that game at the Oval was over within 20 minutes. As soon as that second goal went in, it was pretty much all over, and Jim Irvin cut a dejected figure. He was downright fuming after it. He said his team gave up, and now that is up to him to decide. It's always been up to him, but more than ever he feels that it's up to him to pick a starting 11 who will go out there and care and fight for his team. Glentoran didn't have to do much, and in fact they passed the ball around with ease, and it of course is made easier when you're going against 10 men. It was a nice little game for Niall McGinn. Junior gets a goal. Great goal from James Singleton. Fisher with a beautiful little drive from outside the box as well. So Glentoran win, but they were pretty much playing this game on easy mode. I think it says more about Ballymena than it does for Glentoran, but they'll be delighted. Score 5 at home. That's a great afternoon for them, but it's another torrid game for Ballymena. I mean, Jim Irvin hooked Wessendorf after the second goal. This is a team who have never really showed any sort of form or anything really exciting bar the odd snatch and grab win. They're still not last based on goal difference, but it just... How are Ballymena going to turn this around? January's going to be key, but where and how are these reinforcements going to come from? Because not only are all the teams around them looking for similar additions, but I'm sure Portadown, Institute and others will also be looking to try and push themselves up. So it's really a not a great moment for the men from Warden Street.
You pretty much summed up well. The game was over early doors, and I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I sort of feared that for Ballymena because Glentoran missed a lot of chances against Coleraine on Monday night. I think if you're Ballymena, Jim Irvin definitely has his job cut out with that one, and I think he'll be hoping that Johnny McMurray and Cara Freely can go back as quick as possible. And there's no guarantees there either because they've been out for so long. They're going to need time to get back up to fitness as well. So maybe he's sort of clinging on to that, and maybe they can spark a bit of a connection there. But it's quite similar to Newry as well. That Ballymena going to have to try and make Ballymena a really tough place to go and get a result. Obviously, with being with Coleraine, we've played them 3 times this year and found every single one difficult. And I think, and Jim Irvin as well, obviously, before yesterday said their best performances have been against the top teams. So is that a mentality thing, or what is it? The Glens too, I think Warren Feeney's never going to win the Glens fans over. Let's be perfectly honest, just with his weaknesses. But I thought they were pretty good against us in the first half, and they'll just be wanting to just pick up wins, score goals, see where it takes them. Obviously, they're out of the League Cup, but they're not too far away in terms of they'll want to finish as high up in the league as they can, and the Irish Cup's going to roll around quicker than you know it. And you mentioned January as well for Ballymena, and whenever I was at the Ballymena Glenavon game there a couple of weeks ago, Jim Irvin made a reference to the January window, and that was the start of November. So that probably just shows you where his mindset's at in terms of bringing in reinforcements. So
both these teams exit this game with not the friendliest fixture book ahead of them. I talked about this last week, where Ballymena now go from Linfield, then to Larne. For Glentoran, they've got Larne, Linfield and Coleraine. Big set of fixtures for Warren Feeney and their side, which will very much impact the way their season goes short term as well as long term. And that is a man who has got his work cut out to try and get that team firing against those key rivals at the top of the table.
Yeah, 100%. And that's obviously what we do. And the big games just keep on coming. They're all big games for every team, and the Glens are away to Larne now on Friday, and they've always seemed to be really, really good games at Inver Park. Plenty of goals in them. So, and yeah, look, at Ballymena at the other end of the table, their games seem a bit horrible as well. So, tough gig for him as his first job. And I think a lot of people have made reference to his post-match interview. I think it's great. I'm of the opinion.
If you're a Ballymena fan, are you not like somebody said the obvious here? You can't have a manager coming out going, we were unlucky for the second goal and it was poor defending for the third, and sure, what can you do at that point? Surely for a team that's just so lethargic, it feels like watching them, you want your manager to say something that we're seeing right now.
As somebody who's a neutral, I just love Jim Irvin's honesty. I personally, I'm for it. I think if he'd come out and been like, oh, we were tired, or we just didn't play well, or it's just a bad day at the office, in his eyes, they gave up, and there's just some stuff. There's just some stuff you can't defend, and that was one of the performances he just couldn't defend. So that'll be the players either go one or two ways. They'll either be like, they'll either bug up their ideas, or maybe I'm not saying they're going to down tools, but Jim Irvin will learn a lot from his players in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks.
It's also been a toured week if you are a Northern Ireland fan. We're halfway through, really, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. They're bookending of fixtures, but by time of recording, we are still dealing with the 4-0 loss against Finland. I jokingly put up a meme saying, is this rock bottom? I know that seems ridiculous compared to the vast history of disappointment and sadness that is being a fan of the Northern Ireland national team, but in our post David Healy goal against England World, which I feel like Northern Ireland still is if we're talking about eras, this is bad, this is poor. And I know many people will point to the poor start that Michael O'Neill had in his first time as manager, And I know and I'm going to do quote unquote injured lists when it comes to international football for Northern Ireland, is as long as my arm. Where's the hope? Where's the light, Johnny? Is there any, or is it far, far away?
You see, I had this conversation when I was heading to Larne on Friday, and you're just wanting something to cling on to. And the only thing that you can cling on to is just the fact he's given a lot of young players a chance, and you just hope maybe three or four of them are there for the long term, like McCausland and Price.
It's like we all have a framed photograph of teenager Shay Charles going, please be good.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Please find friends that are as good as you.
No, like Shay Charles is a good footballer and will be a good footballer for Northern Ireland. It's, I've no worries there. And it might, and weird as it sounds, it could get tougher before it gets better. Johnny Evans isn't going to last forever. Corey Evans isn't going to last forever. Stephen Davis isn't going to last forever. Guys like that, Craig Cathcart as well. It's just, it's very, very difficult. I think what compounds it is that the only points we've taken is against San Marino. Kazakhstan took 6 off us. Finland's taken 6 off us. That's made it even more difficult. And yeah, I think the injury list has been really tough for Michael. But I do think the fans probably have been patient. I think they realise that. But it's just I watched the highlights against Finland, and after the first goal, and it was easy street to Finland.
Like, we're talking about Finland. I know we've had these random teams pop up, and we were one of them many moons ago, where by the time everybody recognised that we were good, we were on the downturn. But it just, being away from home, 4-0 feels like a thumping, and to a certain extent, I feel as though, as Northern Ireland fans, having to accept it sounds over the top, but we're kind of getting everything that we've been crying out for. We want Michael O'Neill back as manager. Okay, you've got him. We want just young players all the time playing. Okay, here you go. Here's a team that's probably not really experienced enough, doesn't really know each other, isn't quite sure of their positions, and we're just going to give it a go. Because if we lose 2-0 and we have some older players scattered throughout the team, you'd be like, why? It'd just be better if we just went all youth. So I think Michael O'Neill is coming round to that internal debate in his head where he's like, maybe should I be trying to incorporate more established players with more experience, that are more short-term fixes rather than players that will be long-term jewels in his crown. As well as that, it's the debate of, do you try and centre this team around some of its strengths and just go all in on like a Charles or others like that? Or do you try and be a bit more cynical perhaps rather than being optimistic, where you go, right, this isn't his exact position, but it's better because it means you can fit this player and he's better, and there's just no quick fixes here. But ultimately, I think the problem is, at its heart, is that we just have nothing going forward, and Northern Ireland will always have to defend for their lives and will have to spend most of their game at the back trying to be tight, trying to stop attacks before they get going. But ultimately, when it's all just thumps to nothing, or it's chasing down defenders who just look stronger and faster and just all round more savvy than the players that are chasing the ball down, it just looks like boys against men. I'm not saying that was the situation there, but it's like we used to be the David against Goliath, and right now I think we are David without a slingshot, and we're just trying to figure out what that is. And even when we're not going against giants, we're still like, how do we win again?
Yeah, but Northern Ireland's always gone in cycles, and unfortunately, we're just not going through the best of ones. And yeah, you mentioned it, scoring goals it's been a massive problem, and looks like it could continue to be a problem unless Callum Marshall and guys like that can find their goal scoring for the international level. The hardest thing in football is putting the ball in the back of the net, and we're finding it extremely, extremely difficult. I think another thing as well, I would love to see Northern Ireland take the Nations League a bit more seriously, but honestly, it's friendlies. I think if you can win Nations League games, it builds confidence and builds your rankings and everyone else. And obviously now I think we are relegated from the last one, so there's no reason why we can't go in and win them games. And who knows, you can get a good playoff at the end of it and go in it.
Well, as being in one of the lower ones, maybe not low-key a smart thing, because then you get to be the
big fish in a small pond.
And then you get to win the small pond trophy, and that will get you into future competitions. And I think that's also a bit of Northern Ireland fans. We don't know how it's all going to work out when it comes to the Euros in 2028. But there's just a feeling in my gut that tells me that we literally might be the only team not in it.
Yeah, I know, and that makes it more difficult. But at the end
I
of
know
the
Republic of Ireland fans and maybe Wales fans aren't feeling that buzzed about their team right now or their chances, but there is seriously a scenario where it's like England and Scotland, they're in, and then it's just up to maybe the Republic, Wales, and Northern Ireland to fight over two places, and that would be even more depressing.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball. They see that far ahead, and like Scotland, they're in a great cycle at the minute. England will always produce world class players. They've no they've no issues with that. And you look at the Republic, the only two teams Northern Ireland and the Republic have beat the qualifying group have been Gibraltar and San Marino. So that just shows you maybe where football and the whole of Ireland, if you take it as a full map, is at the minute. And you look maybe 10 years ago, both countries had probably a good number, I would say, of players playing the Premier League. You could probably count in one hand between the two now.
So what you're saying, Johnny McNabb, is that you hate Northern Ireland and you want an All Ireland team right now. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the difficulties that both countries are having. And I think Ireland, they're lucky that they've a certain guy called Evan Ferguson that seems to be rocketing the goals for Brighton, and he can be a shining light for them in terms of scoring goals. So if Evan Ferguson has a cousin that's in the north and wants to play for Northern Ireland, that would be great or something like that. So yeah, look, I think both of them
I
are struggling.
cannot tell you how jealous I am of Evan Ferguson. I'm just, as a Northern Ireland fan, I just so jealous.
Big, physical, strong. So
I would trade them
yeah,
one Shea Charles and Jamal Lewis. I don't think they would make that deal. Well, going on to this weekend's games, we're going to preview them right now, as I'm sure you're well aware if you're a keen follower of this podcast. And we're starting on Friday night, as we usually do. And it's a stream game. Back to Larne, team in the moment right now. A chance to be actually top of the league by the time Linfield are suiting themselves up to play at Windsor Park on Saturday. I cannot believe that. Of course, that's no guarantee. They've got to take care of Glentoran, who very happily scored 5 goals last week. I don't think Glentoran are going to do that this week, and I very strongly back Larne here. Maybe all this goal scoring will dry up, which it could, but I think particularly at home on a Friday, this is Larne's to lose.
yeah, Lord have been that one big favourites. There's absolutely no question about that. But I think Glentoran will give them a bit of a problem. I don't see it being an easy one for Larne. I think it'll be a tight game, maybe 2-1 or a 1-0 or something like that, maybe 3-1. I think home comforts will definitely help Larne. They're in a good run of form. They want to go November and win every game.
I think Jed Donnelly came off injured, or at least he came off fairly early. I just don't know the situation there. That would be a blow. I know Junior's always good for a goal when things are going right. I think for Larne, key here will be getting an early goal that will stress out Glentoran. I'm sure Warren Feeney's men will be set out trying to keep it tight early and then trying to find themselves into the game. A nice little Joe Thompson 60-yarder would be pretty handy to completely tear up that game plan. And then where there's chaos, there is opportunity, and I think Larne would happily tear at that bare flesh. So I'm actually going to say I think this is going to be a 3-0 win for Larne. I think they will start well, and once they get the goal, I think Glentoran will have to push themselves forward, and I think Larne will catch them on the break for sure.
Fair enough. But I think, personally, I think it'll be tight.
So far, from these 4 wins in a row, they've all been fairly tight for Glenavon. Almost feels like you could describe all of them as winning boring. They would happily win boring again if it gets them 5 wins in a row when they go up to the Newry Showgrounds on Friday night. This is a game where, as you mentioned earlier on, they'll just want to get anything by hook or by crook. These Friday night games sometimes can be this throwdown, drag-out brawl. I think if Newry can unsettle Glenavon, then they can use the likes of Ford and players like that up top who can maybe run at the Glenavon defence, which is probably something they're weaker at. They do not like to be running towards their goal. But I actually think the big problem here for Glenavon is actually scoring goals themselves, because I think Newry will try and keep it tight, try and keep it compact, and it will require maybe a goal from a set piece to try and break through early on, or it will be from the feet of Peter Campbell or from McCloskey, as we also mentioned earlier on, to try and get at the Newry wingbacks and then find somebody, Prendergast, whoever, in the box. So I think it's a strong chance it's a 0-0, but I do fancy, just because I always back the hot hands in the situation, I think Glenavon will nick this 1-0 by hook or by crook.
Yeah, I think it'll be a tight one too. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Newry will batten down the hatches and get something. I think this is one that they'll feel that they need a point, just something to get on the board and move on. And look, Glenavon have won their last four. They'll go there brimming with confidence. They'll be high on a high. I'll go one each, but again, it won't surprise me if Glenavon won there 2-3-1, just the way they're playing.
Local rivalries, old history, maybe set to the side, at least from the front of the mind, for both Cliftonville and Crusaders, who go into their game at Solitude really desperate for a result. Cliftonville can't fall away any further, and for Crusaders, a loss here really starts to unsettle their season of what they can hope and achieve. An extra week's rest, how will that help the injury crisis which Crusaders are dealing with? Could they see Ben Kennedy return to the side? Could they see the likes of Heatley and Leckie start? It's a strange one between these two, because it really is one of those games for both these sides where you can rip up the form book and anything can happen.
Yeah, and you look at it, Crusaders were a really, really good run of form whenever they hosted Cliftonville at the start of the season, and Cliftonville won 3-0.
That's been the big change. I feel that has been, you can pinpoint it on. I believe was that just after the Newry game where Callagher got injured. I think I'm going to talk about Callagher being injured every podcast the way it's been going, but definitely that was a big swap where it kind of came out of nowhere, and it really established that this was more than just a nice start to the season for Cliftonville. So yeah, if we're going to see the roles reversed, I wouldn't be that shocked, if I'm being honest.
100%, and you just don't know. Crusaders, both teams are really like a box of chocolates. You don't really know you don't really know what type of performance you're going to get from them. And again, I don't think there'll be a lot of goals in that. I really, really don't. I can maybe see a narrow Cliftonville win just with the home crowd, maybe 1-0, 2-1. I think it'll be tight as well. I think I've said all the games are going to be tight here, so we see the egg in my face come next Sunday evening. But no, I do think that one will be tight. I don't read anything to maybe Crusaders have an extra week off unless maybe 4 or 5 players are back. I don't read anything into that. At the end of the day, Cliftonville are going to have 6 days rest between Sunday and next Saturday. So,
well, just stick a wee note down, because you never know, that could be playing into some post-match manager's thoughts, whatever way it goes. I think when you think of the matchups of this game, you have Crusaders back line where you have players who perhaps aren't the most mobile, players who aren't playing in their preferred position, and they're going against a Cliftonville side who are free-flowing. Perhaps the Ben Wilson at the peak of his powers is somewhat went down a level or two, but when you've been able to welcome now back in full-time to the team Ronan Hale, you've got Rory Hale's one of the best players in the league right now. Malin causing havoc out wide. Yes, they aren't particularly stout at the back from a week-to-week player point of view. I know the stats look pretty good, but it feels as though Crusaders have got one up on that Crusaders back line, and I for one can't see this game coming and going without Cliftonville scoring. I can, however, see perhaps Crusaders coming up short going forward, and them just not finding a way to slalom their way through this Cliftonville backline who can be got at, who can be all action, all chaos, but I kind of think that's going to be key, is going to be Cliftonville's attacking play, and that will influence how the game progresses. And I'm going to actually say 2-0 here, Cliftonville, maybe just the one, but I worry about Crusaders' goal chances here. Will Carrick have to panic about the goal chances for them? Will Coleraine have to panic about it? You joke about it all being close. I think this game could be close, because I think they'll score bag loads each. I'm going to say 3-3, and it's going to be the first game that I'm talking about next week.
I'm going to go for 1-0 Korean. Sorry, sorry.
Of course you are.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm sitting the fence, no goals here. I'm no fun. I guess everybody thinking I'm in bad form, but no, I just think with Korean being without Matthew Shevlin and Andy Scott, I think they might struggle to score, and I think they'll want to keep it very very tight. And obviously, look, Carrick have so much goal threats at the other end, so yeah, I'm going to go 1-0. Conor McHenry's now going to have to be our main man in terms of getting goals, and but as well, like it's weird and this is football clubs all over the world regardless of what level, one player out is another player's gain, and it's going to be up there. Obviously, if it's going to be Andy Mitchell or David McDade, whoever it is going to have to come in and try and fill that.
You can maybe Ghostbusters theory because I just know I'll say it again in the future, and there's no one there, or there's no chance for a Korean fan to shut me down. I know he wasn't a big player for you last season because of injury, and he's not been able to be a part of the side this season pretty much, bar the opening few games for Korean this season. Is one of the things you think if Coleraine could address player wise, style wise, would be trying to find someone of the ilk of a Stephen Laurie, because you see this midfield three, or you see the graphics, and you see a Lyndon Kane in there, you see even a Jamie Glacken in there, and perhaps if a true out and out tackling midfielder. I know everybody wants their own little Fod Soule, but is that perhaps the type of player that Korean? I know they have their defensive issues, but if they could get a tough tackling, no nonsense centre midfielder, could a lot of their issues somewhat alleviate?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think Josh Carson's done a very very good job at that since he moved into the but Stephen Lowry's experience and it's just like a Roman midfielder in terms of he just breaks one up so easily. And his nickname at the club was the Crab because he just has these legs that you can grab the ball and moves it on. And yeah, look, I just wish we had Stephen Lowry. He was 27, not 37.
Yeah.
But a bit like Northern Ireland fans with Stephen Davis and Rangers fans with Davis as well. And yeah, look, I think Stevie's picked up more injuries in the last year, and it's just I just don't want his career to end like that. But he's obviously gone down the coaching route as well, and Stephen's knowledge of football, like his brother and like his dad. And yes, look, obviously a loss on the pitch is obviously going to be our gain as a coach. And I have no doubt that Stevie will become a very, very good football coach. He's a smart man as well. Yes, I would love Stevie to end his career on the pitch. Whether or not he gets the opportunity to do that, I genuinely don't know. I don't know how severe it is. But the worrying thing for me, and I've said this to Stevie, is that he's picked up more injuries in the last 12 months than he has in his whole career. And it's been good ones too. He came back for a reserve game and broke his elbow or something. It's just been really really weird injuries in the last 12 months. But if we can get Stephen Lowry fit over Christmas time, the second half of the season, really it's probably going to be maybe his last 6 months probably playing. He'll be have a really big drive to try and get out there. And who knows? It could work out to be a really, really. I love Stevie to finish his career on the pitch because if you were to have a list of top 10 centre midfielders in the last 10 years since Stevie's been, I'm sure he's on everybody's list. He won everything with Linfield. He was very very good for Korean. So fingers crossed that we can see Stevie back out there.
Well, to go back to that game, I'm going to say a 3-3, going to stick with it, and I just think it's going to be all these attacking players like causing havoc at the back. Perkis, Allen, McHenry, Glacken. It's going to be thrilling, I think. Linfield host Ballymena.
Oh, Ballymena.
Ballymena win, yep.
Listen, I'm sure Jim Irvin can. I'd say if there's one fixture he didn't want, it's probably that one. Obviously, it's Larne now. And Larne could be top of the league by the time Linfield go out there onto that.
Anything bar 3-0 might be the shock of the season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll be interested to see how Ballymena line up with that one and how the players approach it. And I'm sure Jim Irvin is begging his players don't concede the enter the goal. Look, I agree with you. I think Linfield will win 3-0. That is my scoreline. Sorry to steal it from you. And Linfield will want to get back. Like if Larne beat Glentoran at the top of the league, and Linfield will want to be back being the top dogs. So yeah, look, I think I would love to know what the bookies odds will give Ballymena. It could be one of the prices ever.
You had a keen eye over Dungannon last week. We spoke about it earlier. Can they take that form that they had from that 4-win defeat of Newry, and can they go to Lakeview Park and get a result? I think many people would still back Loughgall, but I would say those odds have probably shortened after the last week. Can Loughgall pick the pieces together? I think they will. The question will be, can Dungannon find that style of play again and get a result? It's easy to say this probably is going to be a draw, but I perhaps think just the way the Swiss have been playing, this could be a big swap in the other, a big switch in the other direction. And I think actually Loughgall is going to bounce back here and get the win 2-1.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go and think there's going to be a lot of goals in that game. So your listeners will be glad to hear that. I think it'll be this weekend. If I wasn't for the Korean showgrounds, obviously through work, this would be the game I'd love to go to. I think it's probably two different styles of football as well. Obviously, Loughgall be a bit more direct, whereas Dungan like they knock it about. And yeah, I think Loughgall won this. I think there'll be a lot of goals in it. I think maybe 4-2 Loughgall. I genuinely do think there'll be a lot of goals in it. I think, as I said earlier, I think this is Loughgall's biggest game of the season because I think when you've lost the last four, they're just promoted. I think if they Dungannon, people will be sitting there thinking, have the wheels come off Loughgall? I think with Loughgall being at home and knowing Dean and how they play and everyone else, I think Loughgall will beat them. I really, really do. But listen, look, it's one of the ones where like any game in the Irish League, if Dungannon went there 1-0 easy, I wouldn't be surprised. If it was a 4-all draw, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just them games in the bottom six are just so tight.
Another great week of stuff to talk about. I've got clearly a great weekend coming up. I can give this away. Next week, I'm going to be doing my half season awards, and as a little preview of that, I'm pretty much putting you on a spot, Mr. McNabb, but if you had to pick out your Ulster player of the year right now, next week we're going to be talking through, team of the season, all that type of stuff, but if you had to give the award out right now, I know we've got a slate of fixtures coming up to take us to the halfway point, but so far, who's been the best player in the league?
Joel Cooper.
Joel Cooper?
I think with Conor McNabb going, I think Joel Cooper is now the best player in the league, or would like to think he is the best player in the league, and he's just producing form for Linfield. And I think he's been, anytime I've seen him, he's produced big moments and big goals. You look at Larne now. Joe Thompson's got 10 goals for the season from midfield in all competitions, which is great as well. Yeah, so I think Joe Cooper would be that for me. Ben Wilson obviously scored a lot of goals as well.
I like it. Nice one. Well, a few familiar voices and faces next week to chat through all that. But to sign off for this week, I know many people will read your stuff daily, weekly, via the back pages of the newsletter and online. They'll also recognise your voice as well as that. Got to give a plug to the Korean podcast.
Years, thank you. Yeah, so media officer at Korean, I think for the last 9 years. Feels about 19 at times, but listen, we all love our football club and we all love going to a match on Saturday. And yeah, so that's my two joys is working for the newsletter and Korean. So,
any fun guests recently that maybe Korean fans and maybe non-Korean fans would want to have a hook at?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Obviously, we've had a different variety. We've went from like Marty Gallagher, who's our sub goalkeeper, to Brad Lyons, who just obviously made his debut for Northern Ireland and played for Korean. So yeah, look, I think no 2 weeks are probably the same, and I think with the investment coming up, we've had a few interesting guests about that, and we'd love to try and get maybe Mike Riley on, because Mike Riley is obviously now the head of refereeing, and he was at a junior football match in Korean, and so it's probably, and I'm sure you know this yourself, it's getting people to have the time to get on and chat to you. So no, yeah, we've had a few interesting ones, and it's just one of them ones where we'll just probably take a week by week and see who we're playing. Things like that.
Well, I know I am thankful. I know everybody's listened to the podcast is very thankful for your time, Johnny. Cheers, and until next time, cheerio.
No word.
Right, that's me for now. I got those sales to flick through, trying to maybe now find a reason to buy those things that I've been putting off for a while. I don't know if there is anything that you can get for your Irish League fan for your life in a Black Friday sale. Maybe the clubs will be selling kits or something like that. If you do find a deal, share it with the world. It's time to give, time to share. But a good thing you can do if you've enjoyed this podcast is maybe share the news about this pod. You can do it on social media. Our channels are at Kicking Match on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. I don't know why it's we. It's just me behind this microphone and behind all these accounts. A good way you can also help, give, return all type of stuff. You can follow this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, all those things. You could subscribe and you get a notification saying, hey, he's done it. It's nice. I am giving you, you're giving me. It's a two-way street. And of course, if you're feeling a bit lazy, you can always sit up while you're putting up your Christmas tree, because I know you probably haven't done it yet, with a little Baileys or something like that. You can go, hey, smart speaker, please play a kicking match, an Irish League podcast, and I can play. There'll be no wham or anything like this, but my voice will echo out, and really, it's not what Christmas is all about. No, it's not. See you next week. Bye.